smashing of things. I mean, was that happening every night? Was it a constant case of abuse, or you just never know if it was happening or not?
It's usually all or nothing. I mean, you might break a string one night, and the next night it's everything. And so,
I think they seem to throw things around at the end of every show. there was always that time at the end of the show when things would get thrown, but they didn't. They reserved the total mayhem until the last show of the tour when they really smashed things.
except in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, but that was a one-off.
Yeah, but we got there all the way to South America. They destroyed everything in sight. And then another show.
Oh, that's right.
And all I remember is
in Rio,
having all those 412 cabs with all the speakers poked out, and we use these English speakers. And so trying to find replacements in South America. You guys have waited until we were about to go home to do this.
Kurt really liked the sound of the guitar going into the speaker.
Well, it's funny. Nirvana management was closing down. They didn't want to pay. Basically, they didn't want to pay for storage for one of their little storage units. So they asked if we wanted some of these, the backline, cases and stuff like that. And so, and there's some up in the gallery actually that you can see and you can touch. And so we got. I mean, we have like 15 or 20 of these things. But what I thought was cool, and it made total sense when you guys talk about this. I mean, there was at least 50 replacement speakers, with that. So, I mean, was that like a nightly thing?
Still new in the box?
Yeah, still
I
in the
know.
box.
There's plenty.
Yeah. So that's mid '92. And so were you guys like, looking at this? I mean, some of these people. I mean, is this just like a regular flight? I mean.
Oh yeah,
They were always regular flights.
it was always commercial flights. I think that's going out to Turku, Finland from Helsinki.
Good memory.
I'm taking notes for any potential changes that.
I don't remember much about actual shows, but I do remember the planes, trains, and automobiles.
So
That's the show in Turku, Finland. Because I
Okay.
recognize the orange tarp over
And
the
there's
stage.
Alex
And
there.
There's Alex, Big
Big
John.
John.
some dude.
Can't tell.
I don't know. He was local, probably.
And this is the vandalism strap.
That used to be a guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ernie, can you talk a little bit about I guess the guitars? I mean, were the ones that were smashed like this? I mean, was that just gone then at that
Yeah,
point
that
in
was
time?
typically beyond
Okay.
what we would mess with. I mean, and most of the guitars we bought were anywhere from $200 to $400. So to spend 3 days fixing that up, it's just easier to go hit the pawn shops and find another one.
Right.
But we usually harvest parts off things and recycle. A lot of recycling.
Yeah.
He mostly didn't break the bodies of it. It was mostly necks, right? So you had lots of necks on the road.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's, when you look through the gallery too, you'll see lots of those broken guitars and they don't have any pickups, and it is because, even though they were, wildly breaking things, you're also trying to be thrifty at the same time. So, but was that in Rennes?
I believe so,
France?
yeah.
And I think you were saying that this was like the sound check in Dublin, maybe?
Yeah, I wasn't there, but I got that through photographs by looking at what you wore that day. And you can usually you could actually date a lot of photos based on that.
Cool.
That with the gear, what was being played that day.
So, Barrett, when we met and you looked at the Tama drum kit that we had, you were saying that, like especially the hi-hat, he would have like the extra tall hi-hat. And
Yeah, there was only one brand that went high enough, and it was a Sonar. And as you can see, he liked it up here, and he sits really low too. So I think for an audience, it was kind of hard because they could never see him behind that kit.
And so you were saying, like with the kits, I mean, you would usually rent them at the beginning of the tour.
Yeah,
right? And
most of the time they were rental kits.
And then you're just hoping that they last till the end of the tour.
And maybe they weren't rented. Maybe Tama had them sent out or something, but they weren't his. He was endorsed by
I
Tama.
think you were getting stuff from Tama.
Yeah. A very funny story is when we were in Japan, the president of Tama was at the show.
Oh, no.
Do you remember that? The one with
It's
where
coming
Chris,
back to me now.
where Chris put off the fire extinguisher, the white powder fire
Oh,
extinguisher.
yeah.
So they had smashed everything all over the place, and the drums were all over the place. And
I'm sure the
Chris comes
president
out-
of Tama didn't understand why he would
Well,
destroy
the-
his
in-
perfectly
yeah,
nice drum
exactly.
kit.
The
Yeah.
president of Tama thought that there was something wrong with the kit, and that's why he the Japanese are very polite and proper, and I remember they had little sections off in the audience so people couldn't really go crazy.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Where's this one at?
Yeah, I don't
It's in Europe somewhere. Maybe like Stockholm, I think.
Everett.
There's Everett, but some Teenage Fan Club guys are there, so it's probably that European string of shows in the summer. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, we were
or that might be Oslo, Norway as well. One of those.
Yeah, and I mean, just crazy to think. I mean, is it weird for you to go from like these little band tours to this, or was it just seemed like a natural progression at the time?
Well, you know, it took some time, but I mean, even these are festivals that we're doing, so
Yeah, it's not just
you get a bunch of bands together and do you do this circuit of the big outdoor festivals in Europe. Whereas if you were still doing your own tour, you would just be in a 1,000-seat club on your own. So it's all part of the same thing.
Right. This is at the Crocodile in November of '92.
Something to be proud of.
Oh boy.
No comment.
There's Shonen Knife. Big mutual fandom between Nirvana and Shonen Knife, of course. I went on to do some recording with Shonen Knife in Japan. That was really fun.
Yeah.
That's
There's a lot of hair in that picture.
That's the cardigan that we have up on display. But that's in Cork, I believe. And the only reason I know that is because like I was able to zoom into this.
Oh,
and find
yeah.
out where this is.
That's
yeah.
the Bullring.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Bullring.
That place was so cool.
That was a really cool show.
Can you talk about it a little bit?
It's in Valencia, Spain. This was a string of dates we did headlining our own stuff in the summer, and we had Teenage Fan Club along as support, which is awesome. I don't know anyone who didn't love Teenage Fan Club.
I know, they were
They're
awesome.
still my favorite band, or one of my. This was really fun for me because this was one of the few times where we got to carry our own sound system. So we get to use the same stuff every day and everything's already dialed in. So we just set it up, and instead of starting from scratch every day, you can refine it and get better. And so yeah, I mean, I think this tour was a real peak for the band and for the production we were able to do and stuff like that, and getting to see Teenage Fan Club and Nirvana. Like I think the album Teenage Fan Club was touring on was bandwagon-esque, so that was all new stuff. And so yeah, and it was a hot summer night under the stars, and this Bullring was absolutely packed.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah. Dave rented a motorcycle during the day, and he was riding around in the Bullring.
I got to ride that motorcycle
Yeah.
around too. It was fun. I remember that.
And Ernie, did you take these photos?
Yeah, I did.
And so, oh, go ahead.
The thing I've been interviewed a lot about Nirvana, and the thing I always try to make people remember is a Nirvana show was the funniest thing you ever saw in your life. I mean,
Yeah. His rise.
what was always on these guys' mind was what could we do that would be funny? Seriously, I mean, we laughed all day in the van. We laughed our asses off. And so, you know, in spite of everything that came after, I mean, the thing to remember about Nirvana is it was the funniest thing you ever saw. And if you're a serious band and you have to come on after Nirvana, I feel sorry for you.
You know, this photo, Ernie, I mean, clearly, you know, the Sunburst one is what he was playing during the show, right? And so he
Right.
switched at the last song, or I mean, was that kind of like the standard thing? If you know, there were guitars that he liked and didn't want to smash, but then guitars he didn't care so much, or what went on with that?
Yeah, there were ones that you know, he was less attached to that you might swap to at the end. But I think that show he started off with the white one and switched off a few times. It's been a while, but
But at some point you knew, like, oh, the life of that guitar is about to end.
yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Aww.
Ian Beveridge.
That's Ian Beveridge. He was their monitor engineer, and he's still out there with the Food Fighters. He's also from Edinburgh, Scotland. We picked him up on one of the early European tours, and the band liked him, so they kept him.
Ian, that's must be down in South America then.
Yeah, isn't this Rio or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's
That might be, is that right before hang gliding? No.
there's some L7
Yeah, there's
people.
some.
And
Hang gliding.
Yeah.
Here we go. Tell me about the hang gliding.
Hang gliding was great. I didn't really like heights a whole lot at that time, but I remember getting calls the night before saying, we're going to go down and we're going to go hang gliding tomorrow, and asked if we wanted to jump in. I said, nah, I've got things to do. And so I remember that morning sitting around on the balcony and just watching the hang gliders come down all day, and I thought, well, I haven't seen one crash yet. So I'm going. So I jumped in and went up there, and I think Kurt went first. I want to say I went second, and then Dave. But it was fantastic. It was so much fun. I remember landing down on the beach and just the whole thing of flight and getting down there and feeling like that was probably the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. But I didn't want to sound like, you know, because I figured Kurt has done amazing stuff, played incredible shows, and so I was like, hey, that was pretty cool. And he said, that was the most incredible thing I've ever done. Me too. He was like, oh my God, we've got to get these things when we get home. But we never did.
And you guys obviously there was somebody else with you on the hang glider.
yeah, you're riding on the back of the actual
Why
pilot.
we're here today.
Yeah.
Okay.